ADR. Promoting dialogue.
It's May Day in Dakar, 1 o'clock in Lagos. Good afternoon and welcome to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world at wadr.org. First, our top stories. African Union deplores absence of female candidates in Guinea-Bissau elections as collation of results ends today.
In the polling stations visited, the mission observed the absence of women among the presidential candidates.
Gunmen adopt 11 residents in fresh attack on Nigeria's Kwara state. Senegalese government launches 16 days of activism against gender-based violence.
To tell all these young girls that are listening to us that you have also the right to sue somebody because physical damage is as important as emotional and mental damage. It's never late to speak up.
In Liberia, concerns arise over transparency and citizens' welfare in $1.2 billion draft national budget. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Augustine Coley with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast this afternoon. We begin in Guinea-Bissau, where the collation of results from Sunday's legislative and presidential elections concludes today, November 26, 2025. The Electoral Commission is expected to announce the provisional results on Thursday, November 27. Meanwhile, the camp of presidential candidate Fernando Da Costa once again raises concerns about alleged irregularities during the voting process. This comes even as the ECOWAS and African Union observation missions have released their preliminary findings commending Bissau Guineans for conducting a generally peaceful electoral process. Abdullahi Hassan has the details in this report.
On Tuesday, the camp of presidential candidate Fernando Dias reiterated claims that electoral irregularities were observed during Sunday's elections. However, ECOWAS and the African Union (AU) released their preliminary observations the same day, describing the overall electoral process as peaceful. The ECOWAS Election Observation Mission reported that it visited 859 polling stations across the country on November 23. Dr. Abdul Fattah Musa is Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security at the ECOWAS Commission.
The voting exercise was peaceful, orderly, and well organized. Out of the total number observed, 661 polling stations representing 80.6% were rated as good, and 139 polling units representing 17% are excellent during the voting process. ECOWAS observers noticed mainly the presence of only the agents of the two main protagonists, Embalo and Da Costa, in almost all the polling stations visited.
The African Union issued a similar assessment but noted the absence of women among the presidential candidates. Former Mozambican President Philippe Nyusi is head of the AU observation mission to Guinea-Bissau.
In the polling stations visited, the mission observed that voting took place under good conditions and that the principles of fair and transparent voting were respected. The presence of the candidate representatives demonstrated the credibility of the process. The African Union mission expressed its satisfaction at seeing women and young people actively participate in the process and regretted the absence of women among the presidential candidates.
The Electoral Commission announced late Tuesday that it will begin centralizing results from the 9 regions on Wednesday morning. Official provisional results are expected to be released on Thursday, November 27, 2025.
Abdullahi Hassan fired that report. Elsewhere in Cote d'Ivoire, Soumaïla Bradomi, spokesman for the opposition PDCR party, is expected to arrive at the police headquarters in Abidjan this Wednesday. The Ivorian MP was summoned by the General Investigations Department of the Abidjan Police Prefecture, although the notice did not specify the reason for the summon. Bradomi, who left the country several weeks before the October 2025 presidential election, returned on Sunday, November 23. His initial summons had been suspended following the intervention of Adaman Betogo, Speaker of the Avora National Assembly. Betogo, however, emphasized that members of parliament are obligated to comply with summons issued by competent authorities, while underscoring the importance of institutional dialogue and respect for democratic norms. Let's focus on Nigeria now, as reactions are pouring following the return of schoolgirls adopted in Kebbi State, northwest of the country. The release of the kidnapped victims was facilitated through coordinated efforts by the federal government. However, the relief has been overshadowed by renewed fear after gunmen attacked another community in Kwara State, adopting 11 people, including a family of 7 and a pregnant woman. WADR's Usma Umar reports from Abuja.
In a major relief for families in Kebbi, authorities confirmed that 24 schoolgirls abducted last week from secondary school in Maga have been rescued. The state governor, Nasir Idris, says no ransom was paid, crediting security forces for the successful operation.
We have received credible reports that our security agencies, based on the order that was being given to them by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, to ensure these our girls have been rescued. They have been rescued, and all of them are in good health.
However, as celebrations continued, fresh fears emerged in Kwara State, north-central Nigeria, where suspected bandits launched a pre-dawn raid, abducting 11 people, mostly women and children. The attack came just as the state was still rejoicing over the recent release of more than 30 worshippers kidnapped during a church service in Eruku. Critics say government efforts remain largely reactive. Among them, senior lawmaker and ruling party member Ado Dogwa condemned the latest attack, insisting that authorities are failing to protect citizens.
Mr. Speaker, we can even declare legislative emergency. Close the house, shut it up. Who are you legislating for? What laws are you making when the country is running in blood and tears? The farmers cannot go to farm. Our traders cannot go to market. Worshippers cannot go to mosque, cannot go to churches. If the government is not prepared to actually do the right thing that will protect the lives and property of our people, I urge on this honorable house, as a house of the people of Nigeria, to stand up to pay the supreme cost. And that is no more than to shut this house down.
Meanwhile, these incidents follow the return of Nigerian delegation from the United States, led by the National Security Advisor Nuhu Ribadu. The team, while in Washington, engaged American officials in response to U.S. President Donald Trump's recent claims of a Christian genocide in Nigeria and secured assurances of continued U.S. support for Nigeria's ongoing security operations. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
The government of Senegal is implementing this year's 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, a powerful symbol of memory and human rights. An official ceremony was held Tuesday on Gorée Island to mark the start of the campaign. The global theme is Unite to End Digital Violence Against All Women and Girls. Established in 1991 by the Women's Global Leadership Institute, the 16 Days of Activism is observed annually from November 25, International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, to December 10, International Human Rights Day. The campaign underscores the strong link between gender-based violence and the broader fight for human rights. Sankule Janko reports.
Gorée Island, a UNESCO World Heritage Site marked by its painful history, served as a symbolic stage for Senegal's launch of this year's activism against gender-based violence. At Tuesday's ceremony, officials warned that violence against women and girls remains a serious national issue. Maimouna Jay, Senegal's Minister of Family and Solidarity.
Recognizing that women and girls constitute a significant segment of the vulnerable population and that their protection is essential for reducing poverty and inequality, the Senegalese government has committed itself through the new public policy framework. The National Agenda 2000 for Systemic Transformation, Senegal 2050, has strengthened the measures to combat violence against women and girls.
A 2024 ANSD survey shows that violence and harmful practices have risen in Senegal from 27% to 31.9% in the past 5 years. Child marriage remains at 12%, while female genital mutilation still exceeds 70% in some regions, despite a national average of 20%. Globally, nearly 1 in 3 women has experienced physical or sexual violence, a figure unchanged for a decade. The 2025 campaign highlights the growing threat of digital violence. Rabat Khouma, digital manager at Askan.
I think we need to teach from a very young age behaviors and how to actually deal with certain things online. The second thing I would say would be for the NGOs like ASCAN and UNFPA, ONUFAM, all those NGOs to maybe create a platform for these people that are victims of digital violences on the daily to come and be able to speak up for themselves. And the third thing, we need to have proper laws against cyberbullying and digital violence.
The initiative seeks to raise awareness, build capacity among key actors, and push leaders to create a safer, more equitable digital space for all.
Sankule Janko fight that report. Meanwhile, authorities in Senegal say a boat carrying 96 candidates for irregular migration forcefully landed Tuesday on the beach of Hunjul village in the department of Tivaouane, west of the country. State media APS reports that 78 Malayans, including 72 men and 6 women, 6 Gambians, including 4 men and 2 women, 5 Guineans, as well as 7 Senegalese were on board this boat. The boat left Bakau in Gambia on Friday, November 21 at around 2 a.m. and landed off Hunjul in the commune of Daru Hudas. Alerted by residents, members of the Mboro Gendarmerie Brigade quickly went to the scene. The rescued individuals were taken to the Territorial Gendarmerie Brigade in Mboro, where they are being cared for and will be subjected to required hearings. An investigation is underway to identify the possible organizers of this irregular crossing. Away from Senegal, the Gambian government has concluded a high-level roundtable aimed at reviewing the living conditions and livelihood opportunities of refugees in the country. Held on Tuesday, the roundtable was organized by the Gambia Food and Nutrition Association in collaboration with the National Commission for Refugees and the UN Refugee Agency. The forum brought together government officials, development partners, and humanitarian actors to examine the findings of a recently completed social, economic, and livelihood assessment. WADR's Banjul correspondent Sandona Mendy reports.
This study highlights persistent gaps in access to basic services and the challenges many refugees face as they try to rebuild their lives within host communities. Addressing the forum, Interior Minister Abdoulaye Sanyang reaffirmed the government's commitment to improving the well-being of refugees and strengthening the system that support them.
The government of the Gambia, as a signatory of the 1951 Convention on Refugees, stands ready to work hand in hand with all partners to ensure that every refugee in this country live in dignity.
In his remarks, Omar Kamara, Deputy Commissioner of the Gambia Commission for Refugees, urged institutions and partners to move beyond discussion and take concrete steps to improve livelihood.
Let us ensure that our policies, our partnership translate into real improvement in the lives of refugees and community that welcome them.
Meanwhile, Martin Kaberuka, representing the UNHCR's multi-country office in Senegal, said the findings underscore the urgency of transforming commitments into tangible results.
I wish to reaffirm our collective commitment to the principle of solidarity, inclusion, and shared responsibility. Because refugees are not merely recipients of aid, they are agents of change, contributors to development, and they are partners in peace.
The Gambia hosts a relatively small but diverse refugee population. As of 2024, an estimated 4,200 refugees from 21 countries reside in the country, most of them in urban areas. Officials know that while progress has been made, significant gaps remain in sustaining collaboration to ensure refugees, asylum seekers, and stateless persons can live with dignity and gain access to better opportunities. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Sang Donald Mendy, reporting from Banjo.
You are listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Here is a reminder of our top stories. African Union deplored absence of female candidates in Guinea-Bissau elections as collation of results ends today. Gunmen adopt 11 residents in fresh attack on Nigeria's Kwara State. Senegalese government launches 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. Still ahead in the news, in Liberia, concerns arise over transparency and citizens' welfare in $1.2 billion draft national budget. We also have guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Many thanks for being with us. As a reminder, we are streaming live on YouTube at WADR and on Facebook, WADR English Service. As Liberia's legislature debates the proposed $1.2 billion national budget, a growing number of opposition leaders and civil society organizations is raising concerns about its transparency and potential impact on ordinary citizens. The budget, which is the largest in Liberia's history, surpassing previous budgets, is now a focal point for public scrutiny and political debate. Amid the discussions, pressure is mounting on the government to use the budget process to prioritize the welfare of public sector employees and address long-standing grievances over compensation and benefits. WADR's Monrovia correspondent Ibrahim Parker reports.
Among the critical voices is Clarence Moniba, political leader of the opposition Liberian National Union, who argues that the proposed budget fails to align with the government's stated agenda.
I'm calling on the president to recall the draft national budget of $1.2 billion in a country of just 5.2 million people. There's absolutely no reason to maintain over 104 ministries by reducing government from 104 to no more than 50 institutions. Liberia, we would save over $400 million in goods, services, and overhead.
Another opposition figure, Simeon Freeman of the Movement for Progressive Change, accuses the government of channeling resources toward the executive and legislative branches while neglecting the needs for ordinary Liberians.
Even if we collect $5 billion, the legislature budget will jump to $200 million. The president budget will jump to $300 million, and they will have all of the justification. They want some abuse of power. Why do we need a whole ministry of state just for presidential affairs?
Additionally, Senator Edwin Snow, a frequent critic of the Boakad administration, urges the government to honor its pre-election commitments, including reinstating the pre-harmonization salary structure and increasing the salaries of civil servants.
There's a long countdown government expenditure. It's new. You introduced for the first time. It's over $200 million. So if you just look at that line, for example, that is new and the budget has survived over the years with all that new line being placed in the budget, that money is already enough to address the issue of pre-harmonization. There is no time better than now.
Beyond the political sphere, civil society organizations and concerned citizens across Liberia are also calling on lawmakers to prioritize the nation's interests as the budget review process continues. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
Let's take you to Ghana, where there is a renewed debate over religious expression in mission schools as Christian leaders push back against growing calls for non-Christian students, particularly Muslims, to be allowed to fully practice their faith on campus. The latest debate follows a legal suit brought by a private legal practitioner against one of Ghana's all-rights senior high schools, Wesley Girls. A joint statement issued by the Ghana Catholic Bishops' Conference and the Christian Council of Ghana insists mission schools must be allowed to maintain their long-standing Christian identity despite government support and diverse student populations. Nadeditete reports.
In the statement released on Tuesday, November 25, 2025, the two major Christian bodies, the Ghana Catholic Bishops' Conference and the Christian Council of Ghana, argue that mission schools were founded, funded, and nurtured by the church long before the state became involved in public education. They maintain that government assistance does not amount to state ownership, nor does it give it authority to alter the school's religious character. The churches say parents voluntarily choose Christian mission schools knowing the institutions operate within a Christian worldview. They warn that permitting parallel worship systems, prayer schedules, or dress codes could weaken school cohesion, discipline, and the moral ethos that have defined mission schools for more than a century. According to the statement, preserving a unified Christian culture is essential to both academic excellence and character formation. Meanwhile, the Minister of Education, Haruna Idrisu, has waded into the debate, insisting that no student's fundamental human rights should be infringed upon.
There is some ongoing debate on restrictions on Muslim students in Wesley Girls, which conflicts with international human rights standards and even standard expected of us in Ghana's Constitution under Article 33(5) and 26(1) of the Constitution. And then to assure our colleagues that we have a duty to uphold the rights of every Ghanaian child, and that we will not countenance any action by any person to deny any Ghanaian girl the opportunity to profess or practice any religion.
The Christian Council and the Catholic Bishops' Conference also cite constitutional protections of religious liberty and freedom of association, arguing that mission schools equally have the right to practice and uphold their faith. For WADR, Nadidi Tete, Accra.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Our guest interview segment this afternoon focuses on this year's 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, especially in Senegal. The Senegalese government officially launched this campaign on Tuesday, marking a renewed commitment to protecting women and girls and strengthening national efforts to end all forms of abuse. The 2025 campaign also highlights the growing threat of digital violence. Our guest is Rabbi Houma, digital manager at Askan, a Senegalese NGO at the forefront of community health innovation and advocacy for women and girls.
Well, digital violence, first of all, is any form of violence, cyberbullying, harassment, insults, anything that is negative and has a negative impact on an individual, and that is done on the digital sphere. So it can be messages, social media, it can be on the computer, by email, anything that is digitally made and that is violence, so harassment, bullying, insulting, doxing, publishing images and non-consensual images of people, posting their phone numbers, their addresses, all those things are considered violence.
What sort of digital violence are most prevalent in Senegal based on your research or community feedback? Because we've also seen that you made a presentation.
So first of all, mass cyberbullying, people tend to be followers, and so when one person gets bullied, usually you have a lot of people that follow suit. And so you have mass cyberbullying, cyber harassment. You have also revenge porn, which is a lot of commonly used. So just recently we've had one of the biggest revenge porn sharers, whose name is Coach Barma, who was sharing intimate pictures and intimate videos of women in exchange for money. So he would extort people, and if you would give him money, then he wouldn't share your video, and sometimes you would even give him money and he would share your videos. So I would say sextortion, revenge porn, cyberbullying, and body shaming. Body shaming in Senegal it's even a part of culture to talk about somebody's race, somebody's skin color, somebody's shape. It has become so basic to talk about these things that people actually don't realize that they are perpetrating violences against mostly women. And I think all these things, they affect women a lot, because women are taught in our culture to mun. They are taught to just take it up and not really respond to anything, and they're supposed to just they're supposed to endure violence or shame or even humiliation without retaliating. And so those things are actually, I think, in the culture of the Mun culture has transpired into the digital sphere. And now they let things happen to them on a daily basis without ever having to go or pressing charges or speaking up for themselves or retaliating against those violences. So I would say those are the most common violences against digital violences against women and against people in Senegal.
In that case, what key strategies or tools does ASCAN recommend to help young people protect themselves online particularly?
I think we should teach, first of all, in school, when people are young, how to use social media, how to use their emails, how to protect their information, because I feel like the more the world goes, the more digital we become. And so there are certain things that we teach in school that we should maybe leave behind and start teaching people how to behave online, start teaching people that you have a digital footprint as much as your fingerprint. Your digital footprint is huge and is as important as your fingerprint or your DNA. Whatever you do on social media or on the digital, it actually stays. I think we need to teach from the very young age behaviors and how to actually deal with certain things online. The second thing I would say would be for the NGOs like ASCAN and UNFPA, ONUFAM, all those NGOs to maybe create a platform for these people that are victims of digital violences on the daily to come and be able to speak up for themselves. And the third thing for me is the most important thing. We need to have proper laws against cyberbullying and digital violence. We don't have any written, clear law that says if you do this online to a person, then this is how much you will have to pay in fine, and this is how many years you will probably have to end up in jail.
Rabbi Human is a digital manager at ASCAN, a Senegalese NGO at the forefront of community health innovation and advocacy for women and girls. Well, in the world of sports, the excitement surrounding the CAF African Schools Football Championship zonal qualifiers in the Gambia intensified as the WAFU A qualifiers draw produced a series of exciting fixtures. With a place at next year's Continental Finals in the line, the draw officially mapped out WAFU's A qualifiers joining in both the boys and girls under 15 divisions. In the girls division, 4 nations, hosts the Gambia, Senegal, Guinea and Guinea-Bissau will compete in a round-robin format at the Gambia Football Federation Technical Training Center in Yondom. The opening fixture will see the Gambia face Guinea, followed by an exciting clash between Senegal and Guinea-Bissau. The boys' draw delivered equally compelling storylines. Hosts, the Gambia and Senegal, were named top seeds in Group A and B respectively. Group A features the Gambia, Guinea-Bissau and Mauritania, while Group B brings together Senegal, Guinea-Bissau and Liberia. Thursday's opening matches will see the Gambia begin the campaign against the Guinea-Bissau before Senegal lock horns with Guinea at the Gambinos Star Africa complex. The top 2 teams from each group will advance to the semifinals, with the finalists set to battle for the WAFU A crown on Friday, November 28th. For many young players, this competition represents a rare opportunity to showcase their talent on a regional stage and themselves against some of the brightest prospects in West African football. And very quickly up front, the UEFA Champions League last evening took some dramatic turns. Borussia Dortmund defeated Valeria 4-0. Manchester City suffered a 2-goal defeat to Bayer Leverkusen of Germany. Ajax suffered a 2-goal defeat to Benfica of Portugal, as well as Barcelona suffering 3-0 against English side Chelsea. Marseille also defeated Newcastle 2-1, and those are some of the top stories in the world of sports. With that, we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Many thanks to you for listening, and a special thanks to Mustafa Sek and Ismaila Kamara for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via our social media platforms, X, Instagram at WADR English, on Facebook, WADR English Service. I am Augustine Curley. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County.
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Niba County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Banga, Liberia, Radio Gulf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone.